Hello, US 101 CCAP class. So this is my early intro video to just kind of basically, you know, tell you who I am and explain a little bit about the class. So right now, class has not officially started yet, so no one's required to watch this at this moment. Whenever you do get to watch this video, um, whether it's earlier or for the first day of class, what I want you to remember, and I'm going to go over this quite a bit just for the first week, you're required to watch every announcement because the announcements are my way of communicating updates, clarifying things that I'm seeing for the class, and just kind of, I don't know. The bottom line is it's required, so you got to watch my announcement videos, okay? Whether you like them or not, this is just what you got to do. So um, all right, so I have been teaching for Modesto Junior College for a little over a decade. I was born and raised in Modesto, California, and have deep roots in the Central Valley. My great grandparents came from Sweden and emigrated to the United States and eventually ended up in Turlock with a large Swedish immigrant population there at one time. And then I have many branches coming from all over the place. And yeah, I went to MJC for too many years. I got kind of stuck there for a minute and changed majors off and on. I was an anthropology major, a philosophy major, and then I eventually transferred to UC Santa Cruz. I did history there, focused on the Asia and the Islamic world, and then went to Stan State to get my master degree in history up there. And so now I currently live in Portland, Oregon. I've been living off and on in Portland for I think over a decade now. I've been actually all over the place. So, um, and prior to COVID, I spent about a year traveling by teaching online. I went to about 10 countries in a year. Um, and I was mainly in Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. I did about 3 months in Europe, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and Germany, and I was mainly in Leiden, Netherlands. Um, and I did that after my daughter moved out, and I kind of had empty nest syndrome, and I just sold a lot of my stuff and took a one-way ticket to see where I would go, and I was able to do that on very little funds. So, but then COVID came and everything got shut down, and life changed quite a bit. So, um, anyhow, um, why I just mentioning that also is that I really, I came from a working class background. I struggled um, in college. Went, I attended college late in life after my daughter was born. I did. So in other words, I was working as a barista when my daughter was born, and with no degree, and so I understand sort of working class circumstances, right? And then I was able to get a degree and finally had the privilege to go travel, which I was not really able to do until later in life. I was able to go to Tijuana and the Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, before I could do some traveling. So didn't have a lot to travel, and it really kind of helped me a lot with the perspective on what I'm teaching now. When I think about Western civilization, and when I think about United States, when I think about world history, um, it's really kind of added a lot to that, and so I'm hoping I'm able to also kind of share anecdotally some of those things in with my announcements for you. When my experience is also relevant to the content that we're covering. Um, so um, for this class, we're focusing on US history. But one thing that I like to always remind us all is that there's no history in a vacuum, but for United States, it really feels like it. I think like as a world power, the way that we do not see the United States in its relationships to the world is quite mind-boggling. When I was in Thailand, there was very much a bubble there for the locals. I mean, if you watch the news, the whole world is just Thailand and the bordering areas, and there's not a lot of discussion about the outside world, and they focus on their kings and things that most people in the world don't know about or take interest in. But they're not a world player. But here we are in the United States, and again, very isolated. And so I kind of try to break from that a little bit and pull in aspects of world history into US history. I also am going to be focusing a lot on trying to include people who have not, or communities that have not been included much in US history. For instance, Native Americans. Okay. Uh, this US history is presented as talking about the start of it is with colonization from Europeans. And that's what we mean by US history. But even within that way of trying to erase the discourse about that, if that's what we're doing, we're going to find out that there, like, you cannot talk about almost any major event in US history where the indigenous people were not involved, like major players. Okay. I'm talking about the Civil War. I'm going to cover that quite a bit. The War for Independence. There was all of this. And um, so I'm basically what I'm hoping that you're going to get is when you take this class, you're just going to be exposed to a lot of different perspectives and histories that you just normally don't get. So that will make it more interesting and feel like you're doing something, a little bit different, right? This is college, and we're going to go into a wide range of stuff. That means you also got to try to keep up. You got to stay on top of the studies. You got to do the readings. So, talking about the reading. Now, a lot of the covers don't look like this. They don't all look like this. You have there's no textbook you have to buy. Your school may have a textbook, and this is very affordable and easy to get a hold of. Use copies. People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Again, not all of them have a picture of his face, as that. In fact, most of these books don't have that, so it doesn't necessarily look like this. But we're going to use this, and we're going to debate the content in our discussions, or we're going to engage with the content. Now, I like to do full disclosure. For me, I try to make my class politically nuanced so that you don't feel like I'm cramming something down your throat one way or the other in terms of politics. But Howard Zinn, this book is legendary. It's been used by professors and is still being used by professors for decades. And he is a very much what you would call a left-wing professor. Okay. He's doing an alternative critique of US history. And some people don't like it for that. There was actually a book put out called The Patriots' History of the US, and I bought it just to see, what it was doing. And actually, I thought it was kind of fake. Fake in the sense that it was actually a good history textbook, but it was pretending to be the equivalent to this. And here's what I mean. There's something about the way he puts this book together that you can read it and it's great for discussions, is what I'm trying to say. And it operates different than the actual textbook. So I do have parallel readings for the textbook, right? If you, especially for people who need like linear things that are important. But he gets subject matter, and he gets you to think about things in a different way. And he's been so good with that. And this is why he's been popular. I will just tell you, I used to teach a night class with a professor. I mean, with a lot of my students were actually adult grown-ups, owned businesses and so forth. And I think the majority of my students, or a good chunk, I would call conservative, um, they actually still enjoyed this, and they debated with it. In that case, it was in our class, but they liked the approach also in terms of him getting you to think about things. And so, let me also clarify, what does it mean to say left wing, anyways? He focuses on how did renters feel, or how did women feel, or he goes into the history of things that are beyond just the founding fathers, for example. And he makes a critique of Columbus. He looks into Columbus's diaries and what he had to say, and he utilizes he basically kind of shows, in my opinion, he very much celebrates U.S. history. It's just that what's different is he includes different people in it, and he is a little harder on those who have been celebrated. I'll let you decide what you think about the critique. So, just to say, you are not going to get a grade based on us agreeing with something. Okay, you can disagree with everything in this class. All you have to do is the assignments as they were asked to be done. And I'll just say that most of the students that I've had have seemed to appreciate this part of the class. In terms of the discussions, uh, you have freedom of speech, but you also have to be respectful. Okay. And so I usually don't have a problem with that either, but having an opinion and a strong opinion is one thing. Insulting somebody else and talking down or saying hurtful things to other people is another. This is still school, and I will crack down on that. And it doesn't matter what side of like you, I could agree with something that you just said, but you talk like that to somebody, and that's rude or insulting. Where I'm gonna do something about that. So just keep that in mind. Haven't really had much of a problem with that. So all right. So let me then just kind of lay out the idea of what you're going to be doing. Every Sunday, I'm going to open up the module when class starts, and sometimes earlier, sometimes later in the day, and then it'll be for the next week. And so sometimes while you're finishing up some work for the previous week, I'm opening up the next week. Don't get overwhelmed by that. It's just every Sunday from the morning till about evening, and in that time frame, I will open up the next week's work. So each week, when the module's open, you'll see a works objective link, and it tells you what is going to happen, what we're doing. I do not use the course calendar. Let me repeat one more time. I do not use the course calendar. Don't rely on that. They have a reason that's to your advantage, which I'm not going to explain right now. But you're going to want to look each week at the weekly work objectives to see what needs to be done. Now, I only pick 2 days a week for work to be done. Sometimes it'll be both days, and sometimes it'll just be Sundays. It's Thursdays by midnight and Sundays by midnight. This will all be in your in your syllabus. So I don't mix it up. I don't trip you up like that. It's never going to be switched to a Wednesday. Anytime it's switched, it might just be all of the work being on Sunday. I'll give you more time instead of less. Or you have some assignments due on Thursdays, and then usually the essay will always be due on Sunday. Okay, the essay will never be due on Thursday. So this is what you're going to be doing. You're then also going to see the readings link, and it's going to tell you what to read. And then you have discussions and notes and essays every week. And so you have to write notes on every video, and you have to write notes on every video that's posted in the module. Then you're going to have a discussion, which I have posted, and you're going to reply to 2 others. And then you're going to have an essay due on Sundays, which is not that long of an essay, and it's not that difficult. Now, I've already talked quite a bit. I'm not going to explain how to do the work yet. I'm going to explain this a little bit more later, but I wanted to just give you all a heads up on some conceptualization of how the week will look, okay? So, by the way, the essay will be like between 1 to 2 pages max. Okay, so it's not a lot of writing, and you're only using the information that's covered in the class as well. And I will talk more about AI and my crackdown on AI and why, if you think that you're going to use AI to write your papers, um, and I mean the whole paper, I think you're just going to like log in something and do that. This is not going to work for you. Okay, so just get that out of your head because I prevent that from happening. Um, but again, I'll discuss more about the how that goes moving forward. Um, so I'll end this for now, and I will then give another intro which explains how to do the work more once class opens up. So I will focus on the video notes, discussions, and the essay more strictly to really just help you figure out what to do. And let's see, and just remember, last thing, this is a college class. I've talked to your school. It looks like they've opened up things so you have access to the videos. You are expected to have access to all the videos as grown-ups, and that it's like, if you're having any problems opening the video because you're a minor, we got to resolve that right away, because I can't, like, everything that I show has to be watched, and we're not going to get around that. So if that gets gummed up, then that's work that's going to get you behind. And so I'm not going to say, oh, well, you couldn't open it, so we're going to move on. No, you're going to have to get to seeing everything. So hopefully that's going to not be a problem for us, but I just want to make that clear. And that's it. And so I hope you're having a good week, and I look forward to getting involved with you all more once the class starts.